Civilization 7 has changed a lot about the decisions that you make in the early game. Previous games like Civ 5 and Civ 6 have been solved for a long time, and we're still slowly working out Civ 7. One of the recent revelations that we've had is with regard to the library, and why it might actually be a bad idea to be building it early. In this video, we're going to be focusing on a concept called min-maxing, where we try and do the most efficient thing possible at any given time. We're having discussions about things like this every single day on the One More Turn Discord, so if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description to where you can join. So let's talk about the library, and about what we're doing wrong with this guy. So this is the spawn that we're going to be playing with today. There's nothing special about this spawn, and once again, it's got a blended combination of resource tiles together with terrain tiles and vegetation tiles. There's a nice little mix. We've got the flat, we've got the vegetation, and we do have a couple of rough ones in here. So the way that we'll be looking to play this is quite simple. We'll be benchmarking based on 3 key factors. Number 1, science progression. Number 2, culture progression. And number 3 is production progression. So how we actually measure that is going to be about how far along we get in the tech tree and what our income is per turn. We'll be looking at those 2 metrics to determine exactly how strong we are. For our playthroughs, they're going to change depending on what our priority is, because we want to work out if going for the library first is actually the right call, or whether there is a better option. And I'll give you a hint right now. There is. So our first playthrough, we're going to run up through agriculture, into pottery, and then we'll go up to writing, where we'll build our library. From there, we'll then come down to animal husbandry. Actually, I take it back. From there, we'll actually go into the mastery, and then we'll go down into animal husbandry. And then after that, we'll go into masonry, where we'll build our monument, and then we'll go to irrigation up to bronze working, and then if we can get there, we'll continue going up the tree. The key idea here is that we're looking to differentiate between our early decisions. Is it worthwhile going for a library versus is it worthwhile going for a monument? What's the correct choice? Is there a correct choice? That's what this video will look to explore. So we'll start it off with our first playthrough. Okay, so this is the first playthrough. Just a quick run through of exactly how this is going to work. First, we'll look at the tech tree, then we'll look at the culture, and then we'll look at the production. When it comes to the culture, every single run is going to be exactly the same with regard to how we go down the culture tree. We're going to start off with chiefdom, then work our way into mysticism, then we'll go into discipline, then we'll go into code of laws, and if we can get there, we'll go up to citizenship, and that will be the way that we measure that. With regard to our production, we're going to be measuring that in our settlers produced. In the early game, it's absolutely imperative that you're producing lots of settlers, and they do scale with cost as you make more of them. So they're a great metric to determine how productive were we during these first 25 turns. And the final one that we're going to be looking at is science, which is a little bit more confusing because when we're popping around the science tree, it's going to be different for each run through depending on what we want, because each run through we're going to be looking to unlock different technologies that will give us access to new things sooner. So let's get into it and talk a little bit about the decisions that we made in this first playthrough. So this is the science-focused playthrough, and this was the one that I thought was going to be the absolute best when I came into this. And it wasn't until somebody messaged me on Discord and said, hey, are you sure about that? And it turns out they actually had some pretty good points. So what we started with was into pottery. And the reason why we did this is because we went for a mining start. A mining start is a start that focuses on mining resources. So that's your quarries, that's your mines. Those are the key ones here. And we had a couple of mining or rough tiles. So we had one under here. We also have a couple out over on the tundra with the 2 salts. So this was our focus on this spawn. So in every single playthrough that we do on this spawn, it's a mining start. Now I know that there's going to be folks that say, okay, but what about the woodcutter start? Well, don't worry. We've got some spawns to show for that as well, just to get the numbers out and just to make sure that we've covered all of our bases here, because this is important stuff. If this is going out and I mean, there's going to be a few people that will be watching this, it's important that we get it right. So let's take a look at the tech tree and how we're doing it. So we start in pottery. By doing this, we're going to be picking up our brickyard. We throw down the brickyard immediately, and then from there, we then look to move into writing. By going into writing, we can start work on our library and then move into the mastery, which is going to be boosting up that writing even further. You can see we've got a +7, I was going to call it a campus, a +7 library right here, which is pretty damn good. And then from there, because we've got a higher rate of science, we can then convert that into more quickly picking up the subsequent techs that are down here: animal husbandry, masonry, and then after the brickyard, after the library, then we look towards the monument and look to put that down here. And what that gives us at the end of turn 25 is a benchmark of 4 turns remaining on bronze working, 2 turns remaining on Code of Laws, and 1, 2, 3, 4 settlers produced. Oh, didn't mean to move that one. And 1 settler to go with 1 turn left. So that's our baseline benchmark. Now I'll be flashing these up on the screen, probably somewhere over here, just so you can kind of follow along, because there's going to be a lot of numbers, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. But I want to show you the difference that you can really start to see as these games continue to evolve. And keep in mind that in your games, if you're playing on a different speed, so we're playing on the online speed. You can see we're playing on Governor here because we're just testing. But we're playing on the online speed. If you're playing on a standard speed, this is going to affect you even more. So it's important to keep that in mind as the video progresses. Okay, so here's the second playthrough where instead of going into the library mastery straight away, we actually left it and we went from pottery into writing, got the library, and then we came down to animal husbandry and then straight into masonry. Now, the reason why that we would do this is because there's actually a really key upgrade at masonry, and it's not the monument. The key upgrade is actually the bonus that it gives to mines. So your mines, they will start off with their absolutely pitiful yields. You'll see right here, we've got a 2 food and a happiness over here for this yield. But then once you've got a brickyard, that will go up to a 1 production. And then from there, it'll go up to a 2 production after you research masonry, because it gives a +1 production on mines and quarries. So this is actually quite an important component of doing this. So arguably, the sooner we can get into this, the more production we're going to have and the better that things could be. So we want to test that theory, though, especially with regard to library, and work out, is it just better to go, because we're already going into pottery first, right? We're doing a mining start, and one of the key things that we want to look at whenever we're starting is we want to do an assessment on our terrain around us and our vegetation around us, and we want to assess, okay, which start is going to be appropriate for me, which warehouse building specifically do I want to open up with? Do I want to go into a granary? Do I want to go into a fishing quay? Do I want to go into a brickyard? Or do I want to go into a saw pit? Because these all affect different aspects of the game. And so naturally it seems like a brickyard into writing just makes perfect sense. However, there's an argument that masonry could be a priority here. And that's what we look at in the next playthrough. In this playthrough, though, the benchmark is going to be 5 turns on bronze working, 1 turn on Code of Laws, and we've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 settlers out, and it was finished on this turn right here, so you'll see that it is just a 5 and 5 and 0 right there. So that's your benchmark for this turn 25 on the second playthrough. Okay, we're on the third playthrough here, and one of the things that you'll notice straight away is that with regard to our benchmarks, everything looks the same with regard to production, because that's what our focus has been. When it comes to our science tree, instead of going up to writing, we've gone straight into pottery, get that extra production from the brickyard, and then immediately down to animal husbandry and into masonry for the +1 production on mines and quarries. What's curious, though, is it wasn't as big as a bump as I thought it would be. I figured that by delaying our writing, that we would really be able to pick up this bonus quite quickly. But if we take a look at the amount of extra production that's here, it's really not a lot. It might work out to be somewhere in the region of about 5 to 6 extra production. So in the end, the library did actually catch up pretty quickly instead of skipping it. And on top of that, the monument down here hasn't actually taken any turns off Code of Laws. We're still sitting at 1 turn until Code of Laws, and this was with the monument before the library. So library is definitely starting to look a little bit better, but it's not the full story. That's the benchmark for this one. We've got 7 on bronze working, 1 left to go on Code of Laws, and then we've got 5 settlers out with 3 turns to go, with a little bit on the top. Let's check in with the next playthrough. Okay, so this is the 4th playthrough right now, and what we've done here is just completely skipped our technology whatsoever. We haven't even gone into pottery. We've just gone straight into animal husbandry. We've gone straight down into masonry, and keep in mind that this is an opening that focuses on the brickyard. We want to get as many bonuses as we possibly can to our mines. And so we've skipped the brickyard here. And what that means is we've really taken a hit to our production. We never actually built a brickyard. You'll see it's still available in here. But I figured, you know what? We'll just go ahead and do this because, I want to make sure that we exhaust all of our options. But you can see that this one here, we're at 7 turns on the bronze working, 16 turns until citizenship. So we have had a little bit of progress with regard to just rushing that monument directly. However, we've really taken a hit with regard to our production. We've gone backwards quite a bit. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 settlers out with 1 in queue, and it's at 2 turns to go. And with regard to our science has definitely come forward. Our We've also got our culture that's moved forward, and now our production has gone backwards. So it feels like we're not necessarily back to square one, but we're still trying to work out exactly what the best route is forward. Let's take a look at our next playthrough. Okay, we're here on the 5th playthrough, and I already know that there's going to be people saying, okay, what the heck were you doing? Why were you making a saw pit when all you had were mines? So we've gone ahead and just made sure that we covered all of our bases, and we've got a whole bunch of woodcutters that are down here. We've got woodcutters everywhere that we can put them, everywhere that we could get them in. There's really not that many of them realistically looking at this, and that's just because we do have quite a few resources that are out here. I think it's only the 2. Anyway, we've only got the 2 woodcutters just because we did have these resources. Now that I'm actually looking at the resources, I'm like, you know what? We've got kaolin together with the gypsum. This is actually a pretty favorable opening towards mines, despite the fact that there's really not a lot of rough terrain here, just because of the resources that we've got. But anyway, we'll move forward and just look at our benchmarks, and you can see they've gone backwards quite a bit here. We've got 1 turn until irrigation finishes. So our technology has taken a massive hit because our production was so far behind. And that's a component of our starting resources not necessarily being conducive to us having a woodcutting priority or a vegetation priority here. We did obviously go for the saw pit. We look to try and focus on picking up the monument because obviously if you're looking to play into animal husbandry and that's going to be a bonus into the saw pit, it also provides a bonus to woodcutters. So you're getting realistically a +2 production bonus. So you want to try and play into that as much as you possibly can. And I will just provide another caveat that we do have another save that I'll be showing you at the end where we actually do a very good spawn for woodcutters, just to give you a bit of an idea on whether there's a right move with them as well. But anyway, just with regard to this specific playthrough though, let's focus on the tech tree. So bronze working isn't even begun yet. We're still working towards irrigation, and that is largely because we didn't have the ability to put down our library soon enough because we didn't have that production coming through. So if we take a look at our production, you'll see that we're doing 18 a turn at the moment, which isn't too bad, but we've only produced 4 settlers. We've got 3 turns on the 5th one. Things aren't looking that pretty. Our culture's doing well because we've just quite literally gone straight into culture. If we take a look here at the tech tree, we've just gone straight into animal husbandry, right into masonry, and got it out immediately. But unfortunately, we're not happy with this one. So let's keep cooking and let's talk a little bit about what actually we could improve on, because there's something under the hood right here that I didn't tell you about, and I want to bring to your attention because it's making a huge difference in these games. So one of the key decisions that I made earlier, and something that I intentionally left out of this video until now, was because I actually had a bias. I came in thinking I knew what the right call was, and it wasn't until I got into this phase that I realized I'd made the wrong decision. What was that decision? It was with regard to policies. Typically, when playing Civ 7, one of the rules that I've followed is I want to keep the culture in as my only policy. Let me open up our policies tree. I want to keep the culture in, charismatic leader, as my only policy until I get to my pantheon. Once I've got my pantheon, I'm going to take it out, and then I'm going to put toolmaking in. And that's because I don't need culture anymore. I don't value it as much as I value production and as much as I value science. But the trouble with doing that is, when you've got big yields, right? If we take a look at this, we're pulling big yields here. 18 production, 18 science. +1 on each of those doesn't really make a difference. But you know what makes a lot of difference, especially if you're rushing your library first? It's an extra 2 culture. It makes a massive difference. So by taking that policy and just leaving that policy in, the charismatic leader, rather than actually taking the toolmaking, allowed us to really boost up our culture, while at the same time keeping our science high, but also having some pretty decent production here. You can see that we're at 4 with 2 turns to go on our settler, which isn't too bad, but there's still more min-maxing that we could do here, because in previous playthroughs, I would intentionally leave toolmaking out, and I would say, okay, I'm just going to put priesthood here, I'm just going to put priesthood in, because I don't want to affect the playthroughs, and we'll just leave this as sort of like our baseline as our control. Because this would happen because of a celebration. You enter into a celebration, you'll get a second policy, and you've got the option to put toolmaking in. Obviously, you can put toolmaking in whenever you like throughout the game, but that was in addition to it. So this was our first playthrough with actually not taking out toolmaking, or rather not taking out charismatic leader for toolmaking and just keeping it in. And our baseline looks a lot healthier now because we're actually covering our bases. We're covering the things that we weren't doing properly the first time. Let's take a look at another playthrough where it gets even better than this. So in that last playthrough, we rushed a library and then rushed the writing mastery straight away, but we kept charismatic leader. That was the difference. But now in this playthrough, what we've done is we've rushed the library, but we didn't go for the mastery, and instead we went straight to masonry for the monument. And as you can see, there's really not that much difference in it. So I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm not going to talk too much about it. It was just a combination that we tried. Didn't really work. Let's move on to the next combination. We now arrive at our final save on this specific spawn. And we've managed to get 7 on the bronze working, 7 turns to go, 13 turns on our citizenship, and we're on turn 25, and we've got all 5 of our settlers out with absolutely nothing in queue. And what was the trick? What was the difference? Did we go for the library first, the monument first? Well, actually, the trick was just making sure that we prioritize the relevant resource at the relevant time. Making sure that we left culture in after we got the option to take it out. Even though we'd researched mysticism, we kept our culture in. But on top of that, making sure that we added in tool making as well helped us out a huge amount. And I think this actually says a lot about Civilization 7, because you are rewarded for maximizing your efficiency with the terrain and the features of your spawn. The biome is nowhere near as important as it was in previous Civ games. There's definitely some better biomes, such as tropical, which has rainforest that gives you science, and there's better terrains, like the rough terrain, which gives you access to mines. But realistically, going for library early doesn't actually make sense. This spawn right here is a monument opening spawn. The key difference here is that by opening into the monument, you're maximizing your production. And that's the true king. The library isn't the king. The monument isn't the king. If the +1 production was coming through on writing instead of at masonry, then it would 100% be the right call to go for the library instead of going for the monument. The only reason why it doesn't make sense to go for writing first and to get that library, the reason why it's wrong to rush a library is simply because that production is down here on the monument. And so it just naturally lines up towards that. Now, does that apply to all spawns? Well, we're going to find out in just a second, but before we do that, I just want to let you know, we'll be doing a playthrough of this spawn as well, just to show you what the first 25 turns look like, and the decisions that went along with it along the way, so that you can see this finally optimized opening, because I'm pretty confident with this moving forward that this is going to be the standard opening that you pretty much use for every single circumstance, with the exception of maybe a jungle rainforest spawn. That's pretty much it. Or a spawn where you have farms, which is not fun. Anyway, let's get into it, and we'll just take a quick look at the second seed. Okay, so just a quick look at our woodcutting opening. Once again, we've got the single mountain as well as 2 adjacent resources here. So we still have the exact same yields as we had in the last game. Just the primary difference here is that we're going to be more focused on going for our woodcutters. We've got 4 woodcutters in total. So if we take a look up the tech tree right now, when we started, we opened up straight away by going into animal husbandry because it is a wood opening. So we did that, and then naturally we made our way down into masonry straight away. And because of that, we've been able to get a decent way through citizenship already. It looks like we're about 1 turn of the way through, but our science is definitely lacking, only about halfway through on irrigation. I think what this really says is that you have to very much play around your weakness. So in this scenario right here, because we've got a culture opening, and we've gone into that culture opening through playing off a woodcutter and then going down into masonry where we've got access to the monument early on, the consequence of that is that we've got excess culture. So it means that we look to try and shift out that policy. Instead of having charismatic leader in, we can shift in tool making to make up for that extra culture that we've got from the woodcutting start. So I think walking away from this, we're starting to build an idea on what might actually be the best opening depending on your starting terrain. If you're going to be opening up with mines, it's going to be more important to keep charismatic leader in after you've got your pantheon. Whereas if you're opening up with a woodcutter opening, it's going to be more likely that you want to keep in, or you want to shift it out for the tool making, just because you're going to be able to pick up that extra production, that extra science. Of course, you slot them both in once you've got your celebration and you've got room for them both in there, but that's pretty much it. And we'll just take a quick look at one more spawn just from this one, which has got these 2 flipped. So basically we went the other way down the tech tree. We went from animal husbandry into pottery and then into writing and then back down to masonry. It's a little detail. Okay, so we just take a look now at the last of these 2 starts where we went for the library first and then we went for the monument. We only managed to get out 3 settlers, so we didn't even mention that in the first look at this benchmark, and obviously the production is just nowhere near as good as the seed that we had with the mining, as well as just mining being far superior to that one. So realistically, when it comes to this opening here, I think that moving into a monument first is still going to be the correct play. And that's just simply because you're coming down into animal husbandry, and it just makes sense to go down into the monument before you come up into riding. So realistically, I don't think there's any circumstance where going riding first works, unless we talk about our caveats. So what we've been able to identify so far through these testings is there doesn't really seem to be a better option between the library and the monument, but there definitely is a better technology option, and that is going into masonry. However, there can be exceptions, and the reason why is because typically we want to balance our yields. We want to be making sure that we're not neglecting one. If we're focusing on science, we're forgetting about our culture, and if we forget about our culture, then we're not going to unlock world wonders, so we're not going to be able to complete our world wonder victory path. By the same token, if we're focused on culture, we're not going to be able to complete our science victory path or legacy path, which is going to be involved with codexes. As on top of that, we're not going to be able to get those important researchers that we need later on in the game. So let's talk a little bit about some of the exceptions that you might find to these rules. So the first one is going to be your leader attributes. And this is a really important one because it's something that's often overlooked when it comes to decisions. So if we take a look at Confucius, Confucius is expansionist and scientific. This means that he has an option to choose between +3 food in all towns. He can give that to as a endeavor to other leaders, or he can do a +6 science endeavor. And that means if you've got +6 science early on, it's probably not that beneficial for you to have a library compared to having a monument, because we know that you want to balance those resources or those yields. And of course, once again, there's a caveat for this, and that is if you're doing a specific strategy. If you're going into a science-heavy strategy, if you really want to go down and unlock your specialists, then it could mean that maybe you want to do that. But from a more generalist perspective, we'd want to try and keep these two balanced. And that's a rule that you can follow pretty much throughout the entire game, no matter the leader, no matter the civ. And it's only these caveats where those exceptions come through. Now, another exception might be the mementos that you use. As an example, if we take a look at the mementos from, I think it might come through from Catherine. Let's see if we can find it. It is +2 science. Here we go. +2 science. It's actually from Hamiko. +2 science per age for every technology mastery completed. This means that if you go into your writing and then go into your writing mastery, it's not just giving you 2 science for that first codex. You're getting 2 science for the codex. You're getting 1 base science on that library, and now you're also getting an extra 2 science for completing the mastery. So now all of a sudden there's more of a push to go down science, because the sooner you get that, the sooner it starts working for you. But by the same token, on the other end, you could be somebody like Catherine, who also gets a bonus towards that same thing. So as an example, she gets +2 culture per age on great works. Now, this is a culture bonus, but she's getting it off going down the science tree. So by her getting into the science tree sooner, she's going to be able to pick this up. And that's going to allow her to balance those two out. So once again, you can look for differences between these leaders that might lead them to go down one path or the other. And we can see here she's actually, funnily enough, a cultural and a scientific leader. So maybe you might want to focus on production a little bit more. So that could be another option. But irrespective of those two factors, the main thing that you want to be doing is looking to try and get that balance through. Let's go through now to the playthrough and take a look at exactly the decisions that went into this and about how they all build together. Okay, we're back at square one where it all began. Let's take a look at a playthrough and what all of these decisions culminating together looks like. We're going to move our settler just up towards this position here, because this is the position that we determined when we started the playthrough. And let's get going. So we're going to be starting off with a hoplite, and that's just because I want to defend from barbs. Normally in the games that I would be playing, I'm going to be going into a scout in the early game, whereas here I'm not going to be doing that. Now, I'm going to be starting off with pottery. This is because pottery is going to provide us access to the brickyard, and the brickyard is exactly what we want when we've got gypsum, which is a mining resource, when we've got kaolin, which is a mining resource, when I've got one rough tile here, I've got another rough tile somewhere in here. I know there's another one. This one here is not a rough tile, but it is a mining resource, so we want to prioritize that. We're going to go into a second hoplite here as well. Keep in mind, in a normal game I would be playing, this would probably be most likely be another scout. We'll go ahead here, and there's a little bit of a trap right here that is going to happen. And the trap is actually taking the gypsum right now. You might think it would make sense to take the gypsum right now, but I'll show you the reason why you don't want to do it. And the reason why is quite simple. We actually want to expand towards the kaolin first, and that's not because it gives food, and it's not because we get production from the gypsum, but it's because of the leapfrog trick. Oh my gosh, the leapfrog trick. There we go. So we've got 1 turn left on our hoplite, 1 turn left on our citizen, and 1 turn left on our pottery. So what's going to happen when we end this turn is everything's going to complete at once. And that means that we need to put down our production. And if we look at where we want to put our production, we want to extend this out towards where our library is going to come down so that we're going to be able to put down our production. But if we extend our production here, it means that we're not going to be able to grow over the top of it. So what we actually need to do is we need to grow first. So we'll go ahead, grow our city to the Kaolin, and then from there, we're going to be able to use our brickyard here, and we'll be able to leapfrog that citizen out and then put it into the gypsum. Now, there's probably some other ways that we could have done that, right? We could have put the brickyard over here instead, and then we could have built our second library over here, but it's one of those small little details that means that you're able to use your early game citizens more efficiently, and it means that you don't have a citizen that's just stuck in this one tile because you needed to come out here over to the Kaolin. So let's continue moving on, and instead of going down into writing, we're going to go down into animal husbandry, and that is because we want to get our extra production immediately. So we're going to beeline towards that, and we're going to begin moving our hoplites up towards the top here. Remember, we're not actually playing with our military here in this game. All we're doing is just looking to deflect the scouts, which, by the way, I don't know if that actually works. I've been having some trouble with the barbarians in these playthroughs. So we're going to take mysticism, which is always the first thing that we're going to be doing with our culture, and we'll just be going into oligarchy, and we'll make sure that we pick our social policies, and we want to go for charismatic leader because that is going to allow us to get our mysticism as quickly as possible. We've also got a narrative event, which is because we're playing as the Greeks, and we are going to take the 1 extra hoplite. We're going to move him up towards the north. We'll end our turn. That's going to give us another population. And here we're going to look to put this into another mine. So now we've got a quarry, we've got a second quarry over here, and then we've got a mine down here. So that's 3 resources or 3 tiles that are all going to be getting bonuses from this brickyard when it comes through. There was a scout up here. I swear I saw it. So we'll go chase the scout away. Looks like it might have a bit of trouble. But now that we've unlocked the brickyard, we will be able to... Never mind. Now that we've completed our brickyard, rather, we will be able to focus our production in other areas, such as the settler, because we've now got 5 population. So we'll go ahead and do that. And our technology, we're going to run straight towards masonry so that we can get that extra production. And here we start to see the reason as to sort of why we have what we do. And that's because production is king. At the end of the day, the library versus the monument doesn't really matter. The main difference in all of these games was the production. The production was the key factor. The production was what allowed us to get the culture or to get the science in the first place. And by having that production sorted out earlier, it means that you're going to be looked after in the long run. So we'll put this first settler to sleep. We're not going to be settling it. Now, one thing to see here is that we've got 1 tile before we grow. So we're going to go ahead and take our settler here. We've still got another 3 turns left on masonry, but we might be left with a little bit of trouble. Now, this is where I sort of had that breakthrough and said, okay, well, hold on a minute. The key difference here could be the policy, and that's exactly what it was. So instead of taking charismatic leader out, we leave it in. We keep charismatic leader in here, and that's going to guarantee that our culture is still able to keep up at this point. We're just going to take this narrative event just so it doesn't affect our playthrough here. And now we're in a position here where we need to expand. We want to try and get out towards the salt, but we're going to have to do it through a lumber camp or through a woodcutter, but we'll be able to fix that up very soon. I'm sure you know exactly what we're going to do to it. We'll take discipline. Our pantheon, we're just going to take a pantheon that doesn't affect the playthrough because we want to keep things consistent. But if I was going to give you a suggestion for pantheons that you would take if you had a really nice start, you could go for stone circles, which gives you an extra production for all your mines, quarries, and clay pits, which is very, very nice for a start like this. So we'll continue speeding through now, and we've now got our second settler that's come out, and we've got a little decent spot up here. We're just going to let this scout live, and we're going to begin choosing our production. Now, at this point, you might be tempted to go into another settler, and perhaps if you're playing on a console and you don't have the ability to automatically end the turn, what you could do is do that. But for this playthrough, I'm not going to do that, and the reason why is because what we're going to do is we're going to forcibly end the turn, and that's going to roll over our production, so that now that we've got masonry, we can immediately put our monument down here, and that's going to give us quite a bit of production onto that monument as well. Now, we've got another citizen that's just come out of that tile. That citizen has been ejected from that tile because we put the monument on here, so we're going to take the salt. And from there, we'll look to eject this citizen after we've grown. So we'll grow one more time in 3 turns, and then we'll think about ejecting. Now that we've gone into masonry, we'll be able to move back up into writing and look to secure our library. And for the moment, towards this top side, we're just going to continue building our fortifications. You can see that the enemy is well and truly on their way. And now that we've got our celebration that's coming through, instead of putting in priesthood, which was our control before, we'll put in toolmaking after it immediately. And that's going to really bump up our numbers. And we're looking quite balanced at the moment. We've got the 13 and the 12. And now our culture is going to skyrocket here. So that's going to send us up to 16 culture, or at least it should send us up to 16 culture. There we go, 16 culture. It can take a while for it to actually load. We'll get the commander up towards that top side, and we're going to go straight into Code of Laws here. Now, keep in mind, in actual, like, if you're playing a real game, normally at this point, you could be looking at your unique civics, depending on the civilization that you're playing, or you could think about coming up the outsides here to look to try and push up your settlement limit a bit. So you could be going into entertainment, you could be going into organized military. But for the purpose of this run through, we're just going to go into Code of Laws, we'll go into citizenship. We'll just keep it simple that way. And we've once again got 1 turn until we get to our next population, and our settler, we've got 2 turns on it. So we'll go ahead and we'll pop out our settler, and now that we're growing, we're going to look to move this citizen here because this is a suboptimal citizen. It could be working this tile right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go grab the Dur Shurukin, and we're going to pop it on that tile right there, and we're going to bring it up to the top. I think you guys can do that on console, and then from there we can put the settler back in queue, or we can just cancel the Dur Shurukin completely. And now that citizen needs a new home. We've got the anchor point already out here. These 2 tiles are anchored down, and we can just throw it in there, and then that way we've got a much more efficient tile than this one. So now we'll move through over towards the next turn, where our 3rd settler has now come out, and we've got a little bit of a barbarian invasion right here. Even though we shut down that early scout. This is what I was saying, where it's like, I don't know if you can actually stop the barbarian invasions from coming. If they want to come, they will come. And here we've got our library that will be ready in 1 turn, ready to construct. And we're in a bit of a tough spot here, because once again, we've got the decision to make. Do we go into a settler, which is going to take 2 turns, or do we front load that library? And the answer is we front load the library. Once again, if you guys are playing on Xbox or if you're playing on PlayStation, then probably just go ahead and click that settler. Then we'll let the turn roll over. We've now got the next turn. You could probably, if you've got the settler that's already in queue, you could take it out and then put the library, a little bit of lag right there. Then you can put the library down, and that's going to give you the +2 adjacency. And then from here, we could take the culture, but we'll take the science just because I've been taking the science in every run through, and we'll go into writing 2 so that we get that extra scientific bonus. Now, keep in mind, for this playthrough here with Himiko, we don't have any mementos at all. We haven't selected any of them, and that was very intentional, just so that it's up to you. Keep in mind that this is going to be much greater if you've got something like Groma, which is going to give you access to that early expansionist attribute point. You're going to start to see a lot more settlers coming out because you've got a lot more production for those settlers, whereas... we're going to unfortunately have to deal with this. I don't think I ever once saw them attack onto the settlers here, but we'll do that. And I think we can just forcibly end this turn right now. And that's going to give us the library in 1 turn. Apologies about the barbarian. I tried my best to stop them. So there's our library. In 1 turn, that's going to be pushing up that yield. And we'll now throw our settler in queue at this point. And we've met somebody. I'm not even kidding you. We never once met Lafayette on a previous playthrough. We're just going to give him a negative because I'm mad at him. On our previous playthroughs, we never once met Lafayette. Where did we even see him? He's over here. I've got no idea how that's happened this time. Are our units dying right now? Our settlers are dying, that's for sure. We probably want... I can't even bring them back over onto the shoreline. We're also getting barbarian invaded over here. But don't worry. We'll be okay. Sorry for the distraction. Oh, what do you want, Lafayette? Go away. No. Stop it. Stop it. I'm trying to explain over here. And then we'll go into irrigation. And we've got our settler. We'll bring our settler into the city just so it doesn't get killed by the barbs that are here. We do have another barb that's up towards this top side. And we'll force end the turn. And okay, fair enough. We've got... They must be getting... I was going to say they must be getting incited from somewhere. So now we've got 4 citizens, or four settlers rather, that are out. And we're now going to begin our 5th one. We're at turn 23. And we've got 3 turns to go here. I'm looking at that and thinking, hold on a minute. That's not mathing out for me 100% here. And we're going to go ahead and... we're not going to change any of the policies here, though oratory is a really good candidate for a policy. I'll say that much. We'll move into citizenship from here. And we will just put our merchant to sleep. We're now looking to get attacked from the south as well. And let's roll over our next turn. And that will take us to turn 25. And I think what's happened here is we've got, I don't know exactly how we've rolled over, but it's given us the extra production that we need. I don't know how to get this off the screen, man. I'm sorry, Mr. Merchant. You're going to get deleted. There's no way to get that off the screen. So there we go. And we are now entering into bronze working. We've got our citizenship that is covered. We've got all 5 of our settlers that have come out here. And that's essentially the min-maxed opening as much as we can possibly find at this point. So hopefully this video has done you well. Hopefully I've done a good job to explain why we've actually done this, because I think initially when I set out, I'm like, okay, do I actually want to be going the opening with the library? Does it really make sense here? But I think I've come away with the answer, and that answer is no. We don't want to be opening with the library. There's no real circumstance that it makes sense other than those leader-specific situations, those memento-specific situations, those strategic-specific situations. Other than that, it almost always makes sense whether you're doing a sawmill opening, or rather a woodcutter opening, or whether you're doing a mining opening. It is always going to make sense for you to open into a monument instead of opening into a library. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, feel free to leave a like. If you've got any criticism, if you think I've missed anything, then please leave a comment down below or join the Discord. Come say good day. And if you're looking forward to more Civilization 7 content, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, because there is always time for one more turn.